Republican Senator John Neely Kennedy of Louisiana asked a dumb question of a panel of experts and didn't seem satisfied with the answers he got.
Should the mother, at that juncture, have the right, clearly a viable child, to abort the child? My example is not unrealistic.
I think that
if your answer, I'm going to save my time. If your answer is going to be that never happens, let me go to Ms. Frye. What do you think?
Well, Senator, first of all, if you don't ask a question if you don't want to know the answer. And I think 1%, but I'm saying to you, Senator, 1% of abortions happen at 21 weeks or later. Mm-hmm. So I think the premise of your question sets up a conversation about abortion that is unfair. Rarely is that ever the instance. The vast majority of pregnancies and abortions that are considered late in a pregnancy have to do with severe, devastating medical circumstances. And I understand your point, Senator. I understand your point. But with all due respect, I also think the chances of people sort of getting all the way through a pregnancy and just sort of saying, I don't want it, is disrespectful to women.
The woman in the clip was Jocelyn Frye, and she is the president of the National Partnership for Women and Families. They are a policy-making and legal advocacy group that deals with healthcare, among other things. During a subcommittee hearing discussing abortion bans and interstate travel for care after Dobbs, Senator Kennedy posed a question that has been posed and shot down time and time again. What happens if a woman carries a child for 34 weeks and then changes her mind about having a kid and decides to just abort the child? Yes, what if? As Ms. Frye told him, and as others had tried to tell him, that simply does not happen. The hypothetical is nonsensical, and anyone who isn't actually being obstructive to push forth some kind of weird Christian agenda knows that. Anyone with any kind of common sense knows that. Personally, I know plenty of women who have had children, and I don't know a single one of them who has even floated the possibility of aborting a child that they'd already carried for months. Trust me when I say that if a woman has already carried a child for that long, whatever health complications may arise towards the end, abortion is always the absolute last option. They don't even want to hear the word at that point. As Ms. Frye pointed out, only about 1% of abortions happen at 21 weeks or later, and I'm going to venture a guess and say that the majority of that 1% is happening closer to the 21-week mark than to the 34-week mark. But for as pro-choice as I am, in Kennedy's hypothetical scenario that never actually happens, in which a woman decides to abort a fully grown, fully viable baby for no other reason than because she just feels like it, I would say sure. Doctors would be within their rights to deny that particular woman the abortion, get the baby out of her. She doesn't have to keep it. So if abortions really need to put restrictions on abortion, let it be there. I don't care. As a senator, Kennedy could help to ensure that the now motherless child would be taken care of by someone else. But since this isn't about and never was about finding and implementing the most sensible response to a made-up problem, instead we're seeing doctors in red states turning away pregnant women in ERs because they don't want to be accidentally complicit in a miscarriage because Republicans don't know the difference between abortion and miscarriage. That is a far cry from Kennedy's made-up scenario. Here's the thing, you guys have probably heard me say this already, but this affects me very personally. I'm getting married this year, and by then I'll be 36 years old. I live in Texas. I do not want to get pregnant in this state because the government here terrifies me and overreaches into places that it shouldn't, like hospitals and doctors' offices. I don't have time to wait for my state to figure things out. I can't wait for Texas to flip from red to blue. I've been waiting for 20 years, and unfortunately, moving is not much of an option for me right now. As much as I wish it were, it simply is not. The party of small government, the party full of people who don't like being told what to do, they are overreaching. And they're doing it in the name of supposedly the unborn innocent children who might maybe get aborted at 34 weeks. They're doing it for Jesus, whose authority I personally don't recognize. They're doing it because they have control issues. Look, you know all the talking points. You've heard them all before. You've heard the arguments on the left. You've heard the arguments on the right. I don't need to rehash all of them for you here now. They're the same arguments that both sides have been yelling for years. The thing that stood out to me with this particular hearing was just how pointless all of it was. There was Senator Kennedy acting like he cares to have an intellectual discussion about about abortion, acting like he's working so hard to find a solution that addresses all of the issues his big brain can conjure, a solution that could appease the most Americans, the most women. He has a panel of experts in front of him detailing all the reasons as to why the Republican stance on abortion is not only incomprehensible but dangerous, all of them doing so calmly, eloquently, intelligently, and none of it matters. He knows what he wants to happen. He knows he's not going to do a thing to make things easier for women in this country. He knows that it's all pointless, but he acts as if he's open to learning and trying his hardest to really understand the issue. He's a smart guy. There's nothing for him to understand that he is incapable of understanding. And that's a scary place for our country to be. And we've been here for a while. Both sides are locked in dogma. At least one side tries to appeal to practicality, to evidence-backed research and data. The other side appeals to a God that a growing number of Americans do not believe in. They are not the same. They just aren't, and that's it. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and check out my podcast, Modern Context. Thanks.